There are things that we expect to see make the leap from Earth to space. Rockets, shuttles, Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster. However, if someone said they expect to see the goalie from Crystal Lake's pickup hockey team reach celestial ascension, you might wonder what they were smoking. You may also wonder what we're smoking when we tell you that Jason X is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies, and happy Friday the 13th, everyone. You get a special episode drop on this special day, and we're talking about a very special movie because we are talking about Jason in Space. That's probably going to happen a few times during the show because we're talking about Jason X. And here to join me on this most joyous of days is my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic.
But
Freakishly fantastic.
Freakishly fantastic.
Yes.
Excellent. We also have special guests who we're going to dub the Slasher siblings. We have Randy Curry and Kristen Gray, our horror experts. Welcome, guys. First of all, Kristen, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm excited.
Excellent. And Randy, how are you doing?
Also great. Happy to be here. Excited to talk about this film.
Now, before we get into talking about the film, Randy, you are currently in this contest right now that is, I'm going to let you describe it.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone is familiar with the magazine Rue Morgue. It's been a popular paper magazine since the 90s, specializing in like the horror genre and everything kind of between that. Last year, they had started a contest to name a person the face of horror. What that means exactly, I do not know, but it is something that I am trying to achieve at this point. The person who wins ends up getting a all expenses paid trip to Hollywood to go head to head with Kane Hodder for a photo shoot with the magazine. Kane Hodder, as we know, is the actor who has portrayed Jason Voorhees in 4 of films across the franchise, and his last being Jason X. So really looking forward to it if I can win, and I'm hoping to kind of source out some votes here.
Now, can I ask a question? In the photo shoot, will he be wearing the mask? Or is it unmasked?
I think it's unmasked. I think a lot because of like franchising issues. Friday the 13th is not great with the franchising these days, only because they've been stuck in like developmental hell for God knows how long. So I think he will be maskless, but
I'm hopeful that they get up to 13 movies. I'm waiting for 3 more.
Right? You would think that Friday the 13th has to achieve that level, but I guess the remake kind of throws them off here. But now, Kristen, when we approached you about talking about Friday the 13th, or at least Jason X in this case, you are a horror fan, and just describe us your movie theater room at home.
Oh, so my husband and I, Leo, moved out of the city during the pandemic, and one thing that I especially always wanted, and Leo didn't know he wanted it until I told him that he wanted it, was that we always wanted like a theater room. So we decided, we can't go anywhere. We most certainly can't go to the movies because of the lockdowns at the time. So we decided to kind of construct our own little movie theater. So the garage at our new home that we had bought was already kind of partially converted. They had it as a, I don't know, like a second sitting room kind of thing. So we ripped up all the carpet, naturally painted it all black. Just horror movie posters and horror everything. So we have a great movie theater, sits 6 people. Normally only sees Randy and I in said theater. It's great. It's great.
I mean, if you're going to do it up, that's the way to do it up. And I'm just sitting here looking at Carrie saying, no, we need a theater in our home.
And I fully agree. I'm actually the one reminding you that this is something that we need.
So now the only real question is, which of the kids do we kick out of the house so we can convert that room into a movie theater?
Ooh, or go both.
Ooh.
Knock down the wall.
Yes.
And
yes.
now you have a really big movie theater.
Okay, so the big room gets turned into the movie theater, and the second room gets turned into the concession stand. Yes, done. Okay, here we go. Sorry, kids, you're on your own.
I thought you wanted your library.
Okay, but let's get back to Jason X here, because we're going to be talking about the 10th installment into the Friday the 13th franchise. But before we do, it is time to take this horror film and trailerize it.
The year 2455. Mankind has taken to and explored the far reaches of space. Technology has brought humanity to new frontiers. And still, students are horny as hell, dismissive to girls clearly intended to make it to the end of the film and run away from walking menaces. In space, it's always Friday the 13th. Jason Voorhees returns to hack, slash, and side-eye his way through another batch of disposable, scantily clad idiots in Jason X, the film that just didn't jump the shark. It strapped a booster rocket onto it and blasted off into the ether. In a film that's one part horror, one part meta-humor, and multiple parts of every earthly cliche, you'll wonder how you can ride a rocket straight back to hell, or Manhattan, or anywhere but here. Jason X, rated R for Robo Jason.
Now hold on. Now
like Robo Jason. Robo Jason.
I'm doing the math. And when was the first Friday the 13th movie?
Oh, God.
I believe it was 1980, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin Bacon stars in that very first film.
He was, yes.
Yes.
And this took place in 2450. So let me explain. So the first part of the film starts in 2008, and then they're cryogenically frozen, and then they're rediscovered in the year 2455. Okay, because I'm like, how old is Jason at this point? Like,
well, he was a Jasonsicle.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There is actually a very good reason for that as well, too.
Ooh, help me out. Okay.
Yeah, so they were worried because everyone was basically very excited about Freddy versus Jason, and everyone was kind of amped up to get started on this film. But they were kind of worried that so much time had passed from the last Friday the 13th that maybe audiences wouldn't quite remember Jason, which sounds ridiculous, but they thought, okay, well, then we need to do something to kind of refresh everybody before we throw out this huge blockbuster that they were hoping was going to be massive, which it was. So they decided, okay, let's do something just random. I don't even think they really cared. I think they were considering a plot with NASCAR at one point. But they decided to do in space because they needed it to be in the future after the events of Freddy versus Jason. And they figured just going into space would be the best way to fast forward the time.
And some of the inspiration, of course, for writing this was based on the Aliens movies at the time. So it makes sense kind of what they wanted to do. And if I remember correctly, one of the script ideas, too, was like Jason was in court and he was being tried for the crimes that Freddy Krueger committed or something like that. So there were, which would have been a fascinating Law and Order series, but dun. But we get space. We get to go to space. But let's talk about who is in this film. The movie stars Kane Hodder, Lexa Doig, David Cronenberg. Yes, I said David Cronenberg. Jonathan Potts, Lisa Ryder, Chuck Campbell, Melissa Aid, Peter Mensa, Melody Johnson, Krista Angus, and Philip Williams. However, there is an almost starring in this film.
The movie was actually filmed in Toronto, and when they were filming up here, Betsy Palmer, who was the original Pamela Voorhees, was also filming in Toronto as well. And they met up with her because they wanted her to do a cameo in the film, but they just couldn't reach an agreement at the time. So we almost had the return of Jason's mother, which would have been really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate she couldn't make it work out, because that would have been really neat to see her come back.
The film was directed by James Isaac, who also directed Skinwalkers. But when you take a look at his filmography, that's not the thing that stands out. What stands out is that he was on the creature crew for Star Wars Return of the Jedi and Gremlins. So this guy has been around quite a bit and worked on some really good projects, and worked on a number of projects with David Cronenberg. Now we know why he's actually in this film. And it was written by Victor Miller and Todd Farmer. Todd Farmer, of course, who played Dallas in the movie. This film, however, is actually on Roger Ebert's most hated list.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an accolade you don't really want to put up on the wall here. However, that being said, at the 2002 Saturn Awards, Lexa Doig was actually nominated for Cinescape Genre Face of the Future Award for her work on this and Andromeda, which was also being filmed around that time. But she lost to Jolene Blalock for Star Trek Enterprise. Now, at the 2002 Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, this film was given a dishonorable mention, so were many others, but it didn't hit the top 5. But it was nominated for Worst Sequel that year. It lost to Analyze That, which I don't disagree. Analyze That was not the best sequel. When it comes to, Randy, you mentioned Blockbuster, and I had a little chuckle when you said that. This film had a budget of $11 million. Domestically, it only made $13 million, and worldwide, it only made $17 million. When it debuted on the April 26th weekend, which, before we get into where it finished, can we just talk about this for a second here? How the hell do you not release a Friday the 13th movie either on Halloween weekend or on a Friday the 13th weekend?
It seems like a missed opportunity, for sure.
Right? That's like putting out Nightmare on Elm Street on Valentine's Day. Don't do that.
I mean, that sounds like a lovely date night, but I guess I understand where you're coming from.
Well, that may be the litmus test for date nights, right? If you take the date to Jason X and she stays, she's a keeper. If it's the only date, well, at least you know early enough, right? For Carrie and I, that would be, of course, be Repo the Genetic Opera, right? Watch this movie with us and you're our people. But when it debuted on that weekend, it debuted at number 3 with $6.6 million. The number 1 film that weekend was The Scorpion King in its second week with $18 million. Changing Lanes was number 2 in its third week. Murder by Numbers in its second week was number 4, but also debuting that weekend in number 5 was Life or Something Like It with Angelina Jolie. So Jason X is the highest grossing debut that weekend. So it's something.
It's definitely something. And it made, I think, like triple the cost of production and DVD and plus post-theater sales, which technically makes it one of the most successful films, which is hilarious.
Well, I think that's the thing. When you take a look at a horror franchise like this, the box office is not going to be the driving factor in the success. Like, you know, those late Friday the 13th slasher films, they're going to be driven by TV replay rights and pay TV and DVD sales and VHS sales. I have to remember what year we were in. VHS was actually still a thing. Whew. But the reason why we are here, not just because it's Friday the 13th, and not just because we're going to call you the Slasher Siblings. It works out well.
I love that.
Right?
I'm here for that.
Now you guys just need merch.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're on it.
Is the critic score. Over at Metacritic, this film has a Metascore of 25. And over at Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is also 25%. The tomatometer, 19%. But I want to put this into perspective, okay? Because you can't really take a look at this and, put it up against other, movies in the theater at the time. So I took a look at the Friday the 13th franchise, okay, as far as critic scores over on Rotten Tomatoes. This is the second lowest audience score of the entire franchise. Jason Goes to Hell, so that's episode 9, has the lowest at 24%, so just a smidge lower. But when it comes to the critic scores, the tomatometers, of all 12 Friday the 13th related films, that includes the remake in 2009 and of course Freddy vs. Jason, this has the fifth lowest tomatometer. This one, of course, has a 19% tomatometer. Part 5, A New Beginning, has an 18% tomatometer. Jason Goes to Hell, it comes in at 16%. Jason Takes Manhattan is at 11%, which I can only assume is a Sex and the City kind of spinoff.
Oh, come on now.
Right?
It's better than it sounds.
That's my movie, though.
But
I don't know. That sounds pretty good.
If we can,
Right?
if we can have Sex in the City and Jason Takes Manhattan mashup, that needs to happen. Someone out there right now is going to like make a YouTube video and make that exist. But the lowest scoring Friday the 13th movie is Part 3 with a 7% tomatometer. Now, Kristen, obviously you have gone through all of the Friday the 13th movies. Is Part 3 the worst one out there?
I don't know if there is a worst one out there. They're all so good.
Thank you.
They all have, qualities and scenes and that just make them all good. And I mean, I guess who gets to say what's good? Who gets to say what's bad?
Yeah, haters going to hate.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. But if you had a gun to your head, or machete in this case, and you had to throw one DVD from the Friday the 13th collection in the trash, which one are you throwing out?
I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, and I don't know, maybe we're going to edit all of this out. Jason X.
Wow. Okay, Randy, same question to you. If you're throwing one Friday the 13th movie in the trash, which one is it?
I feel like I have to go with the 2009 remake.
Okay.
Even, and I'm going to say this only because I just love 80s horror, and the nostalgia of all of those movies, even the bad ones, are just, they exist in a time that just were great. I don't know. And I just feel like the new one, even though it had some bigger names and obviously the quality was better and they really did give it their best shot to kind of reinvigorate the franchise, but it didn't feel like part of it for me.
All right, well, let's get into the breakdown here and figure out why this is the film that Kristen would actually throw out. We're going
to have words after this.
I'm sorry, because I think it's one of Randy's favorites.
I
literally, this is the only Friday the 13th film that I had a poster of in my room in high school.
I can see it now. We're going to finish the show and they're going to start hacking and slashing each other. I get it now. Okay.
The slasher siblings are no more.
Well, one is no more. I can see it now. That's gonna be the merch. It's just gonna be like cartoon characters of each other, just like stabbing each other with various items.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the breakdown here. We're going to start with Lexa Doig, who of course played Rowan. Randy, we're going to start with you here. How was Lexa Doig for you?
I thought pretty okay. I mean,
The tone in your voice to change.
Yeah, no, you know what? She gave it her best shot. I wasn't upset about her performance, but it's not living rent free in my head.
Carrie, Lexa Doig.
You know what? I thought she played it well. Like it was enjoyable to watch each one of the characters. I think like all of the main characters that made it towards the end, it's almost kind of like in any one of the movies, you kind of know halfway through who's going to make it to the end of the movie and who's just not. And I mean, aside from the rules, you have sex, you do drugs, or you go out for a walk.
You die.
Aside from that, right? And also don't run, because as fast as you go, he's going to catch up. you know.
Yeah,
You
he'll
will
get
trip on something.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what? Like, I think they played it well. Like, it was. I mean, you know, how exactly are you supposed to do an Oscar-winning performance in a horror movie when you just know that bad things are going to happen, right? Like,
Oh, Carrie. You put Randy and I in a horror film, and we will give you Oscar-winning performances.
It's true.
I want to see that. Let's make that happen. And I still am holding out. I want 3 more. Like, I'm not counting Freddy and Jason. I'm not counting.
I would count Freddy versus Jason.
But would you count though the remake?
Oh, heck no.
Okay.
It's not time travel here. We're not stepping back in time. Although that being said, Jason goes to the medieval ages. Yes.
All right. Well, make it so then. Make it so. I'd buy tickets. I'd go see it in the theater. I'd support.
All right, Kristen. Lexa Doig, how was she for you?
I liked her. I thought she was a good amount of funny, and not irritating, which
yeah.
I find is a low bar, a high bar for me. I'm not. I guess it depends how you gauge it. I irritate easily. So I enjoyed her. I thought she did well. She wasn't my favorite, but she was not my most disliked either.
I think the thing I liked about Lexa Doig is that, you know, before the cryo freeze, and by the way, this film is over 20 years old, so you haven't seen it by now. Shame on you. But the thing is, in 2008, before she gets stabbed and frozen, she knows what she's doing in that environment. That's familiar to her. It's not like in 2455, she all of a sudden has all the answers on how they're going to survive. She is just as scared as everyone else, and all she knows is that this guy will kill you no matter what. It's not like she's Mary Sueing her way through everything. She doesn't all of a sudden know how to work all the spaceship stuff. Like that, I think that part was actually smart writing, in having her confident enough to know that she has to get away, and at least brave enough to try and save as many people as possible. It's not like she instantly became like the Black Widow and started trying to beat Jason herself. She just knew she had to get off the ship and survive. So in that sense, it works as well. Plus, she's the final girl, right? You're not looking for someone to be slutty or trashy or, you know, get up to shenanigans. You know, she's the pure one. She's the one that is going to survive. And I think, Carrie, you said it best. It's very predictable.
Well, I instantly wanted to know her backstory. I wanted to know just how, because she was the most aware of Jason and the past murders. So I really kind of wanted to know, like, where her knowledge was stemming from. Like, I'm clear that she wasn't a victim or personally attacked by him, but but I mean, did she know somebody? Like, what is her why for being so knowledgeable and investigating this mass murderer, serial killer?
Well, you have to think that because they're at the Crystal Lake Research Facility, they are very aware of what Jason has done over the years.
But she was so passionate, though. Like, again, for her to have been so involved, and it was almost kind of like you got the vibe that she spent her entire career, she made a career out of trying to end him. So I wanted to kind of know
I don't think it's that she made a career of trying to end him. I think it's just that she knows what he's capable of, which is why she doesn't want these people trying to transport him, because she can read the writing on the wall, because, well, there have been 9 movies before that. She read the scripts, I guess. Let's move on to Lisa Ryder, who played KM-14. Kristen, we're going to start with you. How was Lisa Ryder?
Loved. She was so good. That like shoot 'em up scene, she was just just pure gold. Just like female power. I was just cheering for her, and she was really good. I loved her in this.
I also find it funny that both her and Lexa Doig had to wrap up production as fast as possible because they also had to go film Andromeda after this, which was also filming, if I remember correctly, I think they filmed that in Toronto as well. Randy, Lisa Ryder for you.
Favorite. Literally my favorite. She was everything I needed her to be. And I don't know what it was about the way she just took that character and just made it so believable. Because when you're trying to act like a robot, there's such a fine line that you have to find between Beborp and, I'm, from the year 2455. So I don't know. I just feel like she took it. She rode with it. I wish she was in it more. I would watch another movie with just her head somewhere.
As I'm watching this, I'm sitting there thinking, and of course, around the time this came out, I'm sitting there thinking, well, if Data had a sassy sister, it would probably be KM-14. She kind of had that vibe to her, and similar to Data, wanted to kind of explore humanity. Of course, in this film, it's like, well, other people have nipples and large breasts. I should have large breasts because that's apparently what androids think about in the future. But you're right. Like, the one thing about KM is that this is the character that forces the movie to straddle the line between slasher and meta humor, because it is so fun, because it is so almost knowingly campy, but celebratory in its campiness. And I think that's what differentiates Jason X the most, is that prior to this, they were slashers in the woods with the occasional, day trip to Manhattan and, hell. But this is the one film that puts a lot more humor into it, which I think kind of changes the tonality of what to expect when you're going into it. If you go into this, not thinking of this as a Friday the 13th film, but thinking of it as, not exactly like a Saturday the 14th kind of just straight spoof of it, but knowingly laughing with the franchise. But I think she straddled that line well. Carrie, how was KM-14 for you?
Okay, so of all of the characters, as soon as she was introduced, I called it. I'm like, she's making it to the end. Maybe her entire body didn't make it, but you just knew, that especially that scene where she grabbed the big bazooka shooter, whatever, you just knew she was the one that was going to go head to head. Sorry about the pun, but she was going to she was going to be the one, to stand up to Jason because, well, she could, because, she's a robot. So of all of them, of all of the characters, it was predictable. I was able to call it very quickly as soon as, her character was introduced. But you know what? As far as acting, absolutely. And I love that you had mentioned Data, because it's almost kind of yes, she learned about human interactions with the people that she was surrounded with. And that's what just made it so genuinely innocent. And I don't know. It was so cool by the end of the movie to just see her, kind of take control of the situation. She's like, I got this.
And the thing too is that when you think about these films, there's traditionally a lot of just gratuitous, salacious TNA. But I think the part where she's, questioning Sunaran about the nipples, right? It's clearly like a fake chest plate kind of thing. So it almost is. It's much more innocent than you would expect out of, your typical exploitative slasher film. I felt that this was almost tastefully done, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Jason in Space, but here we are.
No, I agree. I don't think I ever genuinely felt sympathy for someone with no nipples before. she really wanted them, and I really wanted her to have them because she wanted them. And it was such a quick scene, but I was like, it leaves an impression, and I'm still thinking about it now.
I'm just trying to picture what a like an odd couple, perfect strangers type of sitcom with Data and KM living together and trying to, discover humanity. I want that sitcom.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
So, dear Lisa Ryder, dear Brent Spiner, and whoever is willing to throw money at this sitcom idea, you're welcome, because people will absolutely watch it. But that's the crossover we need. We need the Data and KM buddy sitcom show. People are going to listen to this show and go, they really are. They're smoking crack, aren't they?
I was going to wait till after the show, but
right there's some special they've got up there in Canada, and they're on it right now. Let's talk about Sunaran, or Sunaran, however it's pronounced there, as played by Chuck Campbell, one of the other people who made it to the end. Carrie, how was he for you? This is the guy, of course, that helped KM and protected her head, and yeah. The keeper of the head.
Yeah, I mean, he was okay. He was there. Like, there was really nothing special that his character added. But I will say, as a blanket statement, though, and I just have to say, like, yes, we're defending this movie. It's not that bad. It really isn't. I loved that there was actually a storyline. Like, not that there's not storylines in the other 9+ movies, but it was different. And like you were saying, it was funny. Like, it was almost kind of like, okay, here's a very out there concept, very far in the future. They are regenerating basically deceased bodies, and they can repair damages, i.e., an arm that's kind of taken off. And they make it, well, not believable, but they make it enjoyable to watch. It's almost like, oh, this is no big deal. Someone's lost an arm. Let's just, put it right back on. And they'll be playing, what was that, VR type interactive game in no time. You know what? I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed all of the characters and what they brought. And I kind of think that they had the perfect number of players introduced. Mm-hmm. And I think he was necessary. Everyone kind of brought their own thing. Yeah, I don't know. You kind of, again, predictability, right? You saw that he was going to make it to the end.
Yeah. I mean, yes, Lexa Doig is going to be the final girl. You knew that right away. Yes, KM mostly made it to the end as a final girl. So yes, there's that. And the thing is that there's a formula to these things. Making it to the end is going to be one of the guys and one of the girls, and they may or may not be romantically interested in each other by the end of the film. I think in this case with Sunaran, more interested in KM than he is in Rowan is good as far as, making something different. But as I'm watching this film, and Randy and Kristen, you guys are going to probably chime in on what I'm about to say here, but most of the men in this film felt a tad ineffectual, if you will. Most slasher films kind of walk that line between female exploitation and female empowerment at the same time. But this one, aside from Sergeant Brodsky, who of course had his big self-sacrifice moment, most of the dudes in this film you could have done without. Kristen?
Yeah. I think that's fair. I will say though that the keeper of the head, I liked him. He actually reminded me of Randy, the character from Scream. I don't know why he gave me that vibe, but he reminded me of Randy from Scream, and I liked him. But you're right, all of the men I could have done without. Which maybe speaks to the times these days, but I guess that's another topic. So yeah, I mean they were I think, like Carrie said, They were there.
They were there. Yeah.
They were there.
Randy, how was Chuck Campbell for you?
Yeah, I liked him too. I did find his character endearing. I liked his developing relationship with KM. I thought that was kind of cute. Laying a lot of groundwork for life-size sex dolls these days, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that was the point. But yeah, no, I aside from him and like you said, the army guy, I don't remember his name off the bat, but yeah, they were pretty much just meat bags there for the slaughter, I think. It just there was no real character development or any real purpose for them to be there. And the ones that were supposed to be serving purposes, like flying the spaceship and whoever that other guy was tinkering with technology in the basement, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what any of them were doing except for
Running.
KM's guy. So, yeah.
But I think the thing, though, is that Chuck Campbell played him in a very innocent kind of way. And I think that played well against Lisa Ryder's KM. Like, you understand because her character is so delightful, I think is the best way to say, talk about KM. Like, she's inquisitive. She is, not necessarily enlightened, but she's definitely, lighter in spirit. And I think that meshed well with how Chuck Campbell played Suneron. It kind of felt like if this was Can't Hardly Wait in space. Like he would be the guy that pines for Jennifer Love Hewitt, but it's not bad. And it fits the formula that he makes it to the end, but a tad ineffectual aside from the carer for and keeper of KM. We mentioned Sergeant Brodsky. It's played by Peter Mensa. This is the soldier that almost made it to the end credits. Randy, how was Sergeant Brodsky?
Love. Thought he did a great job. Fulfilled the head of the army guy role very well for me. I liked a few of his one-liners. I think when he gets impaled that one time, he's like, "Oh, it's going to take more than one impale to get rid of this old dog," or whatever he says. And then he gets his second impalement and he's like, "Yep, that'll do it."
I did enjoy that part.
Right. I think the thing, though, is that Sergeant Brodsky was written better after the impalement than before the impalement, because after the impalement, that's where he almost kind of takes on the hero role in this case, where he's here to do whatever it takes to save the kids. And before, it was more raw, we may as well have been watching Doom. And that was, before that moment, it felt like Dwayne Johnson in Doom, but afterwards it became a bit more heroic. Kristen, Peter Mensa for you.
Yeah, I actually one of my notes was that I liked him in the latter half of the movie. It just more personable, I guess, and not just that like the generic buff army guy.
Yeah, he's not just G.I. Joe in this. Carrie, how was Sergeant Brodsky for you?
Again, I completely agree. I loved the humor and the turnaround, right? So he wasn't just cold and all business and very
hoo-ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably the best way to say it. Hoo-ah.
Very, very very strict or stern. Anyway, again, he tried. He wanted to protect everyone, and he kind of died in the line of duty. So
I think it was good that he was injured as well midway through the film, because it was a chance for us to be reminded about what the nanites are there for. Of course, that's, how we get, we'll get to that a little bit later, but I think you needed that moment to remind the audience that they had the nanites and they could heal, certain body parts here. But more on the nanites a little bit later here. Christy Angus, who played Adrian, the blonde at the beginning of the film, who had her face frozen in what I can only assume is nitroglycerin or whatever it is, and then smashed to frozen little pieces. Kristen, I'm not gonna lie. I thought she was gonna make it further into the film, so I was surprised that she was Jason's first space victim. How was she for you?
I completely agree. I thought I liked her. Like, I thought she was great. She was going to be like I thought maybe even the final girl, right? Yeah, it was a bit of a bummer. The only thing that I guess kind of redeeming that was that it was a pretty decent kill. It was gory, and I enjoyed the kill. But yeah, I was sad that so soon. She was gone so soon.
Carrie, how was she for you?
I kind of really loved how shocking it was that she was the first kill, at least in space. It was like, oh my God. Like, again, I literally, as soon as you saw her, she was smart, she was funny. You thought for sure, and she didn't go off to have sex. So you thought for sure she's going to make it to the end. I really thought she was going to be the one to save everybody, but no. She died quickly and horrifically. It was actually kind of like, I think of all of the kills, that was the one that I reacted the most. I was like, what did they do? Why?
And she's played, I think, in a way that she's supposedly, I guess, at that teacher level as Professor Lowe as well, because they're talking about the kids. They're talking about the ones that they're supposed to be kind of in charge of on this whatever space school, I guess, this kind of thing. It's not really ever explained much past that. But Randy, how was Christy Angus for you?
Great. Again, I have to agree with everybody. I originally expected her to last a lot longer. I kind of expected some type of like old science with Rowan meets new science with Adrian, and they come together across their 400 years and figure out some way, women power, to stop him. So it was very surprising for me that she did die so soon. However, her murder is super iconic, and I don't think anyone who has seen this film can think of a kill that they like more than Adrian's.
I can.
I was about to say I can too, but I'm really glad. I'm glad that you pointed that out, though. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll save it. But of a main character, let me say that. Yeah. Of a main character.
Fine.
But you did point out something that needed to be said about Christy Angus, and again, I thought she did really well in the role. We all think that she felt like she was going to last longer, but this is where Jason X kind of took advantage of the setting, right? Much like Jason, takes Manhattan, all of a sudden you put him in a completely different realm, and you have to find new ways for Jason to kill people. And the Friday the 13th films, and you can say the same thing about the Halloween films, you can say the same thing about the Nightmare on Elm Street films, or Hellraiser, or whatever serial killer franchise you want to bring up, is that you have to find new ways to off your victims, and the more creative they are, the better they are. And almost like in having like a ranking system of, how they died and did they die well. I feel like a Klingon when I say that. She died well.
Can I just say, though, I loved when he found the new machete. The one, I guess it was one of the operating tools with the little holes in them. I don't know what they were for, but he found himself a new murder weapon, and I thought that was kind of cool.
I had Paul Hogan's voice in my head going, "No, that's a knife. That's a knife." Now we need Jason in Australia. That'll be the 11th film, and then Jason in Medieval Times in Friday the 13th, Part 12. Again, writers, start jotting these ideas down. They're yours, okay? Jonathan Potts, who played Professor Lowe, the I guess man in charge on the spaceship plus lover of having his nipples tweaked. Randy, how was Professor Lowe for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can just see the scene, the nipple twisting. This was a very nipple-centric movie, I guess. but I hated him. I hated every part. I don't know why. He didn't necessarily do anything specifically to make me hate him, but I just didn't like him. I didn't like the character. I didn't like how he was written. I didn't really understand why he was there. He didn't act like a professor. I didn't really get that dynamic with the other students. I mean, other than the nipple twisting, but
this film has efficient nipples. Yes, it does. I think the thing though is with Jonathan Potts is that you're not supposed to like Professor Lowe. You're not. His entire motive is to sell Jason for money, which instantly makes him a bad guy and instantly makes him a target for future death. And I think it's one of those things where if you're not supposed to like the guy and you don't like the guy, then the actor understood the assignment and did it to perfection. Kristen, Professor Lowe for you.
Ugh, gross. Yeah, not a fan. Just instant, like, and again, I don't know if maybe this is kind of a sign of the current times versus, back when the movie was done. But just that like instant gross male in some sort of professional power, and you're just like, ugh, no thank you, next. And so no, I didn't I did not care for him. I think that is my reason why I did not care for him. And then I think, like you guys said too, he didn't play that like professor role. He didn't have like a professor look, whatever that means, I guess. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Adrian made sense as far as someone in charge, and of course almost like the good teacher who's like, no, I get it, you two are horny, go do what you're gonna do and do it away from me kind of thing. That made sense. But yes, Professor Lowe felt more like the administrator than an actual professor, and I think that's where the sleaze factor comes in. Carrie, I know when we watched this film together and that the titty twister moment came in, you're like, what the am I watching?
You said it absolutely perfectly, exactly what I was thinking, that I saw him more as like a Weasley kind of, he's the money man. Like he would do anything for a buck. And that's exactly how I saw him, and I actually applauded his death.
Since we're talking about that scene, let's talk about Janessa, played by Melissa Aid. Aside from that, like, there's a lot of sass to this character, and I mean, you knew she wasn't going to make it to the end because the horror movie rules. You have sex, you die. But the fact that there's a lot of, she's not necessarily, for lack of a better term, a slut in this. She's just manipulating the professor in order to be able to get what she wants. But how was, and Kristen, we're going to go to you on this one, Melissa Aid for you?
Ooh. You might have to cut this part as well. So I see what you're saying, I guess, about, her manipulating the professor. And I think I saw it more why the professor gave me such an ick, because it was him in his position using his power to manipulate her, right? And to just Weasley, yucky yuck. Not a fan of him, but we've moved on from that. I found her genuinely funny. I find and we talked about this prior as well, that there was a lot of humor in the movie, and not like campy, make fun of humor. I there were genuine funny moments in the movie, and I found her to be funny in that role, and not funny cringy, like not, I enjoyed her character a lot.
She felt like she knew how to deliver the comedic lines well. And yes, I think it is very much a thing where Janessa knew the buttons to push on Professor Lowe. She knew how to manipulate his weaknesses. So it's not like he's necessarily a sleaze. He's just a weak man, and she's manipulating him, which makes him kind of even worse. But you're right. It is kind of a gross kind of reality. But Janessa is one of those ones where you're happy she made it as far as she did, because aside from that moment, she was actually genuinely fun. Randy, how was Janessa?
Yeah, I have to agree. I thought she was a fun character. Obviously, yes, we knew she was eventually going to die, but I'm glad that she did actually make it as long as she did. I did find the reason I liked her character so much is I think it was just so perfectly 2001, like just her clothes, and even though it's in the year 2455, but it takes me back to that time, like her hair and her clothes, and just everything felt very early 2000s for me. I don't know, and maybe that's why I liked her so much, but I don't know. I liked her. I don't have a whole lot to say on Janessa, but I did enjoy her performance.
I will say her look wouldn't have felt out of place on a show like Firefly. Like I could see it. I could easily see it. Carrie, how was Janessa for you?
Oh no, I'm almost afraid to answer, because of all of the characters, I found that she annoyed me the most.
Oh, okay.
I almost kind of like, I was waiting. I was waiting for her demise. I hate to admit, but I'm actually surprised it didn't happen sooner. And I'm trying to figure out, obviously, listening to the feedback, there was clearly something that I missed personally, because again, I was kind of rooting for her end, and I didn't find her to be funny. I found her to be annoying, in that it was almost kind of like, okay, when is she was the expendable one, right? I'm like, okay, when is she gone? I don't know. I think it was maybe the fact that it was, and it wasn't the actress's portrayal or performance that bothered me. It was legitimately the character. I think putting any actress in that role, it's almost kind of like, okay, you just want to see that character gone. Again, you break the rules and it's inevitable. Jason's going. Now, I have to ask, what is it with Jason in his brain, in his programming, that he can sense people having sex, even in space, like, and they can be like, what, I don't know, 10 rooms down, and he just, that's what makes him come alive?
Oh my God, that scene where that like echoey moan just all of a sudden revives him. It's so good.
Right?
It's so it's that classic, 80s look, there's boobs, and now all of a sudden the killer is near, I find that scene hilarious, and I love it. And it's actually one of my notes that I'm looking at is just make sure you talk about this revival of this.
See, but I loved that. So it was almost kind of like, okay, even in space, the rules are still the rules. And it was, this entire movie was so funny and absolutely on point perfect. To stay true to the rules. And my only question is, when someone goes off walking in the woods, they're going to die. But in space, where do you go? It was almost kind of like, I was waiting for this one character. I forget her name. Sorry. Who were we talking about?
Oh, you think Kinsa?
Yeah, the one we're talking about, Kinsa.
No, it was Janessa was what we're talking about, but yes.
Okay. The one that I wanted to see gone, I wanted to see her, because she was just so emotional. And she was just like, almost like emotional baggage. Like you just...
No, I think you're thinking of Kinsa, and I get it. The two do actually look very similar kind of thing. And of course, at the moment where Janessa is doing the whole titty twister thing on the professor, Kinsa is also having sex in her room at the same time. Those are the two that got pushed out of the room by Adrian. But yeah, there's one of the things too, is that more often than not with the slasher films, it's a smaller group and you have enough time to explore the stereotypes that they are. You know, you usually have the cheerleader type, you've got the brainy type, you've got the jock type, you've got the nerd type, and you can almost nail them down to the stereotypes. But I think that's one of the things that this film is missing, is those stereotypes don't really seem to necessarily exist in 2455 as much as they are more easily identifiable in present day Camp Crystal Lake. But yes, the whole sex radar thing for Jason, it's almost like he's a superhero going, "Hark, I can hear the moans of a horny teenager. I must go stop this now." Jason Voorhees, the ultimate hall monitor. But since you mentioned Kinsa, as played by Melody Johnson, I need to point this out because we were kind of half joking about good acting in a slasher film. But there's the moment where Kinsa's in the escape shuttle and it's still connected to the fuel line, and she's so broken and can't bring herself to open the door to let everyone else in. And basically by not disconnecting the fuel line, she creates her own demise. That moment, I actually did find to be good acting. So, Kristen, Melody Johnson as Kinsa for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found her annoying. She irritated me. I wasn't a fan. And you know, I found myself in that scene where she's in the
escape pod
ship, almost like yelling at the TV, right? Like, come on, just push the button. Like, stop being dramatic. Stop your crying. Get your together. I found her annoying. I did.
I'm just trying to picture you yelling at your TV. Come on, nut up and save everybody, damn it.
It happens more than you know.
Gary, how was Kinsa for you?
Okay, so now that I'm clear on, I think I literally like merged the two characters. But again, I stand behind, this was actually the character that annoyed me. And it was like, okay, you're going to die, but if you don't do this, everybody's going to die. So their death is on your hands. So, you know, like, yeah, again, annoying.
Randy, do we have justice for Kinsa on your end?
Negative. I found Kinsa extremely irritating. I will give you the fact that scene in the pod, I did think that she did an okay job with it, because I was irritated by how emotional she was, but I was believing the emotion in a way. It was very irritating to me. So I think she did do a good job with it, but I am also disappointed that her irritating emotional self just killed herself and kind of took that away from Jason, because I was really looking forward to her dying, but not that
so
way.
Rude.
I guess. Sorry, Kinsa, but like, I'm coming for you.
It's one of those things where you look at the cast of a horror film and you're like, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die horrifically. You might make it, and I'm okay if you live. If you live, I'm bad. It's almost like you have to like place bets at the beginning of the film without knowing who's actually going to make it to the end or not.
But that would make a great drinking game, wouldn't it?
Oh my God, yes. Or like some like, you know, horror movie draft.
Yeah, like the Deadpool.
Yes.
Of horror movies.
Literally a Deadpool. Now, we have already mentioned a number of times the rules, if you will. And these rules come from actually the Freddy vs. Jason DVD commentary. If you get a chance to listen to that, it's phenomenal. And Robert Englund goes on this wonderful tirade. It's like, no, you broke the rules. You drink, you die. You do drugs, you die. You smoke, you die. You're mean to the final girl, you die. And yeah, he's not wrong. But someone who felt like they broke the rules when it comes to drugs is Azrael, as played by Docs Tiefenbach. Again, I apologize if I mess up any names. Idiot, basement, with a microphone. I am. But Azrael, the guy who loses his arm, then loses his life. Kristen, how was he for you?
You know what? I actually forgot about him until you just mentioned him now. He was fun. I liked him. I think he has a very unique look to him. And although I did say that I forgot about him until you just brought him up, he was the most distinctive male character. I think, we kind of touched on it before. I found most, if not all, of the male characters. I don't really remember, like, I couldn't give you a name. I couldn't, like, they were very interchangeable, I found, and they were there.
Thanks for coming out, male characters. Randy,
yeah, sorry.
Randy, how was Azrael for you?
Again, yeah, I liked him. Was not up in the top of like my favorites, I guess, but I did enjoy him, and I really enjoyed his death. I thought that backbreaking was super fun.
Right. Carrie, how was our skivvy stoner for you?
Oh my God. I don't want to say too much, but I absolutely loved him, and I wanted to see him I wanted to see him overcome the rules. I wanted to see him want to be one of the last. Yeah, you know what? He was so much fun. He was funny, and yeah, I guess I was saddened when he officially died.
I feel like he had the potential to kind of get with KM as well. I would have believed that.
And again, if this is the rom-com, this might be the role that Seth Green would play.
Yeah.
Just trying to picture that now, and sadly, I can almost picture it. Yes. One of the things that people feel kind of spoiled the movie was that the reveal of quote unquote Uber Jason was spoiled by the fact that he's on the damn poster like that. So Randy, first of all, the Uber Jason transformation from the nanites, how was that moment? And did you feel almost like you had that moment taken from you because it's in the poster?
No, I'm going to say no, only because it was exciting. You know, at the time we were going into the 10th film, and Jason has had, varying looks, and his mask has changed a little bit here and there. But this was like, oh, this is Jason in space. And he's like, what? He's half robot? How the hell did that happen? I was so into it, and I wanted to like see the movie more because of that little tease, because it was something that was so different that they hadn't done before. So to me, it was intriguing. I didn't really feel like it spoiled anything for me.
And you're the one who had the poster on his wall, so that
I did.
Kristen, do you feel like it kind of put the cart before the horse?
Yeah, I mean that's it was such a big reveal moment, and to kind of already know what was coming. Maybe a little anticlimactic, and that was definitely going to be my answer. Was that I felt that it did spoil a little bit, but then hearing what Randy had said, I kind of get that too now. Like it almost gave you that little like nugget of, ooh, okay, how is this gonna go, and created that intrigue and anticipation.
Now, Carrie, you yourself have fond memories of watching Friday the 13th movies when you were younger. I'm going to get you to tell that story.
Oh my God.
Yes.
As I was mentioning earlier off record, actually no, at the beginning, Friday the 13th, Jason in Manhattan that was my introduction to the Friday the 13th movies. That was my movie. That's the one that I remember the most. Anytime that every Friday the 13th, I'm going back and watching that one. And reason being, I remember we had just got a Nintendo, and it was when the little side scroller, Friday the 13th Nintendo game came out. So my friends and I stayed up all night playing this Nintendo game and hacking and slashing, and Jason would jump scare and just jump out. And, not to mention watching that movie, but because I had my friends over, I think doing the math, I was 10. I actually thought that I was older, but no, 10. We went downstairs in my basement where the pop was kept in the fridge. And, it's like midnight, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, and like 6, 10-year-old girls going downstairs, sneaking downstairs. When we flipped on the light in the basement, I guess my mom had done laundry and not thinking, but she washed a pair of my dad's overalls and hung them up in front of the light. Amazing. So we flipped on the light, and all we see is this like empty pair of literally like mechanics overalls just hanging from the rafters in my basement. And of course, Jason was, fresh on our minds because we were playing this Nintendo game. And needless to say, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, my parents were awoken by 6 screaming, like blood-curdling screaming girls running upstairs. We never got our pop that day, but it was quite, scarring, I would say. I still definitely, when doing laundry, would probably never hang overalls, especially in front of a light with shadows, right? Like picture it, like, oh, I don't know what.
Are you able to drink thinking. Pop now without PTSD? Or
yeah, but I can't get it from the basement. Not at 2 in the morning. So yeah, it was just a fun little memory. Yeah, I'll be calling my therapist. Thanks for that. Thanks for bringing that back up.
It's not so much a movie podcast, but it's more like a therapy session at this point.
Right. But since we are talking about Jason, I have to say that I absolutely loved his upgrade, if you will. I loved seeing that he was like half robot and half whatever Jason is made up of. And we had this conversation earlier. How is it that he keeps coming back? Like, what is he made of? Mm-hmm. Like, really? I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
I'm glad you said that, because I think one of the smart parts of the script, and yes, I'm saying smart part of a Friday the 13th script here, but bear with me on this, is the reason why they still have Jason, and the reason why David Cronenberg and his soon-to-be dead minions were trying to take him away, was that the concept that Jason is still alive is that his cells regenerate like there's no tomorrow, and he seemingly can't die because he has this cellular regeneration. It actually makes sense how he has lasted so long, and I think there's a lot of smart in the script, despite some of the dumb that happens in the film. But Randy, I'm going to put this to you first. Is there anything that makes this movie stand out from the others?
I literally have to agree. I was going to just talk about the same thing with the nanotechnology, and I loved Cronenberg in the beginning talking about them wanting to take Jason to figure out why he can regenerate this lost or damaged or missing tissue. And I thought that was so smart, because then it was like, okay, yeah, well, we all know that Jason can do this himself. So let's have him in this facility overseen by her. Shoot, I forget her name now already.
Oh, Rowan.
Rowan, thank you. And, she's got everything on lock and they're good to go. And then, of course, the military and the government come in and say, oh, no, well, we want to study him, and then just completely botch it. So I did think that it was actually really good, like, full circle moment when it was like, we know Jason can regenerate. He's in space. It's 400 years in the future. So of course they're going to have nanotechnology. And of course, if Jason were to actually succumb to life threatening in his sphere by KM, who just obliterated him, it only made sense to me that of course he was going to fall on the nanobot technology, and of course it was going to make him into a half robot. Like, I was so excited about that, and the writing was really smart. And yes, we are saying that about Jason X because it's true. They really did bring that full circle for me.
Can I just say, though, I am so disappointed that he was blown to bits, because I would have preferred to see him like be ejected from the ship and just kind of floating out there into space. And I so want another movie that I would have loved to have seen him like, I don't know, land, I don't know, somewhere in the future, but on land, and see what the future looks like.
Well, that's where he, it's not really revealed if he necessarily burned up in the atmosphere in their descent to Earth 2 after the explosion of the shuttle. They left it with every possibility that maybe, because we don't see a body, he might still be alive. But
there were many bits of body, but it's all metallic now. So
very interesting. Kristen, is there anything about this film that makes this movie stand out amongst the rest of the franchise?
I think just the obvious, right? It was very somehow Friday the 13th meets Clueless meets Star Trek. There were so many different elements of this, and it did have much more of a detailed storyline, and things that to maybe somebody that doesn't understand science to that level, things that made sense, right? You're like, well, of course. That's what would happen. He'd fall on the table, things would get put back together, and now he's Robo Jason. So I think, it was very different from the others while still holding true to some of the original stuff, like the rules, and when they put him back in the Camp Crystal Lake setting. I don't know if you noticed the T-shirt. I'm so bad with names. I should have had like a cast list beside me. The gentleman that had his arm cut off, then put it back
Azrael,
on.
yep. Yes.
He had a jersey on in the film, and it had 13 on the back. So yeah, like they brought in those classic pieces, but then it was still very different from your standard in the woods killing teenagers.
And I think that's really interesting too, because this was the first of the franchise to rely on digital effects for like death and gore shots, and it was really smart of them, I think, to use the space and the future aspect of the film to kind of dip their toe in that water and see how it would work for future films, maybe, because I find that part stood out for me, as well as that, you've got Jason and he's in the woods and he's got a machete and he's going to kill you. But here it was like they were able to be so much more elaborate with the kills and the creativity that way, because they could use some of that digital effect, I guess.
Now, Randy, you had mentioned, of course, that the cryo freezing Adrian, having her face smashed into a bunch of frozen bits, was your favorite kill. Before we get to this next section, I want to point out that the It's Rock Radio podcast chimed in on social media with the gif of Jason smashing the digital virtual campers into the tree. It's like, I will never not laugh at this. So Kristen, since you mentioned that there was a kill that you held higher than Adrian's, is this the kill that made the film for you?
Oh, the him smashing those sleeping bags together, just so good. So good, so funny. They put these two attractive young women in, and they, in there.
We love premarital sex.
Yeah. You want to smoke some pot? Like, it was so just perfect. And they take their tops off, and the guys behind the scenes are like, oh yeah, like this will totally get them. And Jason is like, nah, not for me, ladies. And just beats them together in their sleeping bags, dying. The best.
People are having sex. I must stop it.
It's so good.
Carrie, favorite kill in the film?
In this film?
Yeah.
I was not prepared for this question, so I'm going to agree with both of our guests. I think the sleeping bag was, I laughed out loud. And then I literally like gasped when the professor got her face smashed, because I didn't expect that. I literally was like, oh, she can't die.
Especially so early.
She needs to make it to the end. You know, like, she's the smart one. Well, why are you killing her? But yeah. And not only that, but she damn well brought him back to life. Like, he could have been a little bit more grateful, I think.
Right?
The only plot hole that really stands out to me, and just here, bear with me on this one here, and it relates to that kill, to Adrian's kill, is that Jason is not from the future. He doesn't, yes, he was frozen, but we're not quite sure if he knows how the cryo process works. So, Randy, I'm going to put this one to you. How the hell does Jason know to put her head in this, sink full of cryo juice?
That's a wonderful question. And if I'm interpreting Jason's motivations here, I think that he probably just thought it was water and was like, oh, great, I'm just going to drown her. But then was pleasantly surprised when her face froze, and then he could just smash it.
It's like, ooh, new toy, new fun, fun.
Oh, this is cool. Yeah, neat.
Right? Okay, so...
Well, I think it's because he was frozen. And he kind of maybe associated his last memory, 500 years before?
400 and some odd, 440.
Not great at math, but I can only count to 13.
Right.
Or 10. I can only count to 10, X. But you know what? I think maybe it was beautifully ironic that was what... Now, first of all, you would think that they would have had, I mean, aside from the nanotechnology, that they would have like far more superior ways of cryogenically freezing.
Well, no, because they cryogenically froze in 2008, and then he was thawed out 440 some odd years later.
Right, but she still had a sink full of the...
In the future, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've gone a little bit further than that, but it's one slight little plot hole, but one I'm willing to overlook for the gloriousness of the kill. But now it is time. So I'm going to go around the horn here. And Kara, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, I'm so ready. Okay. I'm excited.
Who is your MVP of Jason X?
I absolutely loved Azrael. I loved that character. I wanted to see him make it to the end. I wanted so much to see him survive because I really wanted this movie to like stick it to the rules. And he was, he played the fun-loving stoner, if you will. We're not quite sure, so I don't want to profile him or anything. But I wanted to see him make it to the end and be like the smart one. You know what I mean? Like the one that kind of was wise enough to be able to survive. I don't know. I really liked him.
Like Jason Mewes in space? Which is kind of what he feels like.
You know what? Yes. But again, I wanted to see that like kind of like a you to the rules, right? I wanted so badly to see it, but it didn't happen. So then, KM made it. Well,
okay.
That was the one I was calling.
Kristen, who is your MVP of Jason X?
I think for sure it's got to go to Lisa Ryder, who played KM. She had just so many elements of awesome. She was the female empowerment character. She was the kick ass and you don't need that knight in shining armor, right, to save you. She had it taken care of. She was sweet. That nipple scene I loved. I remember watching it and being like, ugh, more useless breasts, really, right? Like pointless to the movie, but it's a horror Jason movie, so obviously they have to be there. And then when the nipple slid off, it was like, okay, I love that. That was perfect. So yeah, for me, Lisa as KM.
All right, Randy, who's your MVP?
Yeah, no surprise, I think, but I agree 100% with Kristen. KM was the movie for me. I could have just watched her fight Jason for the entire 90 minutes. And if anyone's listening, make that movie because I'll watch it. Yeah, she was great. She just had everything. She was funny. She was empowered. She was just everything you want in a character. And to me, the movie would not have even made 17%, I don't think, if it wasn't for her. But she was everything for me in that film.
I feel like since we've had 3 MVPs that I should pick somebody else, because everyone seems to like Lisa Ryder, but I can't. We have to have the quadfecta on this one here. I don't know if this character works in any other horror film except for this one. Obviously, because you're not going to have androids in hell or Manhattan. But I think this is the character that puts this into almost like meta slasher, because it is so fun, because it knows it's in space and it knows like the history of the whole in space kind of trope that, you know, you've kind of jumped the shark at this point. So if you're going to do it with a smile, knowing exactly what the assignment is, and that kind of makes it a bit more fun and just not your average run-of-the-mill Camp Crystal Lake, outing from hell. That's what makes this one, I think, in all honesty, one of the most fun Friday the 13th films, because you had something different, because you had something that knew exactly what it was, and because it reveled in it. Randy, Kristen, Gary, thank you all so much for joining in on this special Friday the 13th episode of It's Not That Bad. Randy, before we go, please, once again, let us know about this contest and let us know where people can go and vote for you.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, Rue Morgue magazine was established as a print magazine focused on horror and genre entertainment in 1997, if you can believe that. And last year, they started a contest to name one horror enthusiast the title of Face of Horror, win $13,000, and hit the hills of Hollywood to go head-to-head in a photo shoot with Kane Hodder to be featured in the magazine, which is so cool. So this year, I am competing, and I'm hoping for all of your support. You can cast one free vote a day by following the link in my bio. You also have the option of purchasing votes, and some of those proceeds will go to support the B+ Foundation, which provides financial assistance to families, fund childhood cancer research, bring awareness to the fight against childhood cancer, and spread positivity. So it's a great cause, and I encourage everybody to check it out.
And Randy, just please send me those links. We're going to put those links on this episode page on our website at Not That Badcast. So if you didn't catch all of that, you can go to our website and make sure you find all of those links so you can vote for Randy and help out where you can. So guys, thank you so much. And to you, our listeners, thank you. Now, you guys know the drill. If there's a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned or is just so bad that there's no way in space that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at Not That Badcast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our coming soon page as well as our other shows. Keep watch pass, there can only be one, and grading on a curve. Until next time. Slasher siblings, thank you. Carrie, you're lovely. Listeners, yeah, you guys are lovely too. This is It's Not That Bad. Take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.